Yeah, we might pay Jimmy over here a little bit more money next year. I mean, it's not a promise, but yeah, we might. And he's basically like aghast that Ed, the exchange student, has been able to get a point on him. Oh, my name is Ed Thompson, and this is how I made it in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah, like I just brought it back.
This is not written anywhere. We're all content, right?
Yeah.
Keep my I have been in Japan since the mid 90s, and I am originally from Dallas, Texas. I work in advertising, marketing, and also quite a bit of academic instruction and professional development here in Tokyo, Japan. When I was in middle school and say high school, you know how you have to take a mandatory foreign language class. And in Texas, we had the option of Spanish, French, German, and I knew nothing about Spain, France, or Germany. And also, there happened to be the option of Japanese. I basically wound up taking Japanese, not because it was something that I thought would be useful to me, but it was something that was so absurd that, well, why shouldn't I take it? I spent a year in an exchange program in Chiba Prefecture. It wasn't too bad. I was taking kendo and I got beat up every day with a bamboo stick while wearing the nice kendo outfit. Within the entire 10 months, there was only one competition, and there was only one time when I took a point in all 10 months. And the person who I took the point from was basically like a aficionado of Miyamoto Musashi. And so he's got both his shinai and he's ready to go for it. I managed to basically punch him in the throat with a bamboo sword. And he's basically like aghast that Ed, the exchange student, has been able to get a point on him. And I felt bad because he was in shock. He was like, what? And that was like the only point that I legitimately took.
This is what happens when you hang out with content creators. We were supposed to be interviewing him. Now he's taking pictures of us.
Where was on?
Get right into the camera. We're gonna take 3 of these. Let's see. Being in the countryside is definitely one way to learn an intensive language like Japan, and I would not hesitate to recommend that for anybody out there. Especially if you're younger, it's definitely something to do, but even if you're a little bit older, being in the countryside, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, if you think that Asia is going to be a significant part of your life and the language would be a good part of that, go to the countryside first. You'd be surprised what you learn about the country and about yourself. I run a marketing consultancy called Concept Design. And Concept Design takes everything from, say, advertising, business strategy, marketing tactics, and consumer engagement and execution, and we wrap it under that umbrella. I have been running it since the early 2000s, and every year I find myself having to reinvent myself because of the situation in the greater world around me. I started as a freelancer. The interesting thing about the business that I am in, advertising, marketing, is that there is a very low barrier to entry. I would always encourage anybody who is looking to, say, start anew, especially independently, or even if you're in a larger company, definitely study the principles of marketing. And also go back to some of the other soft skills, which are incredibly important: communications, marketing, writing, creative writing. All of these things wind up being very important, especially when we are now in an economy where content is one of the biggest things that are out there, and it always is driving momentum. Starting as a freelancer in the world of advertising and marketing halfway around the world was not exactly the easiest thing to do. But what you have to understand is that you will always need to reinvent yourself, but that becomes a little bit easier when you have at least 1, 2, or 3 core skills that you can wrap your professional persona around. So if you're living abroad, the one thing that you always have to think of in the country where you are residing, do you have permission to work there? That permission to work in any country, whether you're in Japan, the States, EU, etc., the conditions and the qualifications are always very different. And it's not that easy to clear all the hurdles. For a good part of my professional life, at least 10 years, I sponsored myself as a freelancer. And it was only when I started to get a certain type of category of projects where it made sense to have a company behind me did I decide to incorporate myself. And incorporating yourself in Japan, there are many different options. The options that I chose for myself was as a kabukishi gaisha, a KK, which is basically an incorporated company. And as an incorporated company, that gave me, at the time, a few more options than I would have had with some of the other type of company structures, limited company, or an LLC. And so at that time, it made sense for me. The key thing about forming a company in Japan, though, is how you incorporate your capital. Are you incorporating, at that time, it was very important to understand, are you incorporating at 3 million yen, which is 30,000 US dollars, 5 million yen, 2,000 US dollars, and some of the different requirements that would come along with that. The first hurdle is to get a working visa. Your working visa can either be as an English teacher, which I think it actually says language instructor. The other option is to be a professional, a general business professional, and that is specialist in humanities, okay? And so you can either be a language teacher or a specialist in humanities. The interesting thing about these categories is if you are a language teacher, one of the first hurdles for you to get is to jump over to the specialist in humanities status of visa. And that opens up a wider range of opportunities for you. When you have the specialist in humanities visa, because you are no longer just teaching language, one of the things that you can do is, as a freelancer, it's possible to self-sponsor yourself. This is not written anywhere on the Japanese government websites. You either have to have done this, know somebody who's done this, or have it recommended to you by an immigration lawyer. But basically, if you can prove to immigration that you have ongoing work that meets the minimum revenue requirements, which might be 3 million, 4 million, 5 million yen a year, 30, 40, 50,000 US dollars, then you can go to these companies, even without formal contracts, but basically, for lack of a better word, letters of intent. And with these letters of intent say, well, this company, we have paid, for example, Ed Thompson, this much money over the course of a year, and next year we intend to pay him the same amount. If you can gather enough business that proves that you have a promise of likely income, then immigration will likely give you a visa. And so I sponsored myself for at least 10, 12 years as a freelancer like that. However, the first application that I turned in was over 70 pages long because it basically had the portfolio of all the work that I said that I had done. It also helps if you have some of the larger names for companies. And so I'd had some of the larger names here in Tokyo, Hakuhodo, Dentsu, et cetera, other types of well-known companies that were paying me directly as a freelancer. And immigration, well, they like facts. Not innuendo, facts. The closest thing they're willing to accept with innuendo, and it's surprising that they're willing to accept this, are these letters of intent. Because this is not something that would fly in any other country. Oh yeah, we might pay Jimmy over here a little bit more money next year. I mean, it's not a promise, but yeah, we might. And if you have that, immigration will give you a visa. But you have to be here to have that happen. I hired a professional, an accountant, to take me through that entire process. I paid $1,500 to $2,000 US dollars. It was really worth it for me for the peace of mind because I was focused on doing the work. My accountant took care of everything, the proper documents for the bank, the tax authorities, registering, deciding what needed to be done in all aspects of the paperwork, and that allowed me just to focus on the business. And I highly recommend this to people, to anyone who is making more than, say, 4 million, 5 million yen as a freelancer. Set up a company and pay someone to manage those aspects of your business for you, your tax filings here in Japan, etc. Because you want to do what you are good at, and hopefully you are good at your business. For everyone out there, I mentioned I started an online learning portal. Feel free to go and visit the Concept Design Academy and sign up. I will be posting a wide variety of information that is accessible, and it also includes downloadable worksheets and workbooks, slides and workbooks that will cover some of the key parts of marketing.